And it's welcome back to the CCFm studios to Johann. Thank you for coming back to the
Hi.
studios. And
Hello,
it's an
Jonathan.
important conversation
Yeah.
to be had with regard to the gender policies that schools potentially might be implementing.
That's
and we just want to touch on it briefly, but again, at the end, we'll give you Johann's details if you'd like to invite him to your community, to your church, etc. But Johann, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you, Jonathan. And over the past year, I've had several parents and pupils come to me about what they claim to be gender ideology policies at their respective schools. And so about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I did a talk on this, a public talk. And one thing I realized was that nobody in the audience was aware of what was going on. And so I wrote to the education department, and they wrote back and informed me that back in 2020, they put out a draft policy for public participation. And they've got, I think it was 317 comments back, which they're going through at the moment. And they hope to finalize this by the end of the year. Now, it's guidelines, by the way. And so one of the guidelines is, and I want to quote this word for word, just so I want to get it right. It's to create an educational environment that does not discriminate unfairly, whether directly or indirectly, against anyone on one or more grounds, including gender, gender identity, gender expression, sex, sexual characteristics, sexual orientation, religion, conscience, belief, culture, and birth, among others. End quote. That was written by a lawyer, clearly. Obviously, I think we all agree there must never be discrimination against anybody at any school. That's without a doubt. That is a fact. But there's a concern I have is, how are schools going to implement this guideline when one considers that the progressive gender ideology is completely the opposite of Christian belief and even Muslim belief? So I've looked at this over the past 2-3 years, and one thing I've observed, there's no middle ground here. Christians believe that God created man and woman, and that and that the only relationship that God meant for was between man and woman. And if you look at the gender ideology, they state, for instance, that there are dozens of different identities, for instance, or genders. For instance, transgender, there's non-binary, there's fluid, gender fluid, and they also state that any type of sexual orientation is acceptable. What we've seen in America is that there's been really big disruptions and even protests at schools and school districts. And my first concern with this policy is that it's going to cause confusion and disruption at our schools. And I think if you look at education today, we don't really need more disruptions and confusion, all right? The second issue is, I've worked with a number from the LGBTQ community, and it's not just myself in my experience, but many psychologists also observe this, that they exhibit much higher rates of psychological and relational issues, including, or commonly, I should say, anxiety, depression, isolation, and even suicide. And I think if a school environment becomes chaotic, this is just going to fuel this even more, which is going to make it worse for them. And we also need to remember that the number of transgender persons is minuscule. It's really, really small. So we need to protect the tiny group that they are. Lastly, and although the education department makes it very clear these are just guidelines, it's going to be up to the school governing bodies to put these policies in place. And again, I have to ask myself, how are they going to do this without discriminating against one or more people groups? I was once the chairperson of a school governing body, and it is a frightful job, just trying to balance small issues, never mind big issues like this. And I think that's going to take its toll on our schools. I don't know enough, so I met a couple of weeks back with Errol Naidu, who I'm sure you all know from the Family Policy Institute. And, he's been addressing this for a very long time. And I want to encourage listeners to check out his website and contact him and get more insight how we as parents can deal with this at our schools in a wise manner. One thing I've learned is that if parents do not get involved in school life, then schools can do anything they really want. And our governments, our local governments, or not our local, our national and our provincial governments, they've been sneaking in some pretty godless policies over the years, and we really need to keep an eye on this. And I want to end by pointing out that the way to address this issue is with respect and with dignity. I've seen enormous damage done where Christians have gone into attack mode and sort of lashed out. It's not going to work. We need to pray constantly for our schools. And, you know, in a first prize would be that every single school has a group of actively praying parents every week at the school. Thank you very much, Jonathan.
Before I let you run away, Johann,
sure.
it really is a serious thing that we are looking at, that the Western Cape Education Department is looking to implement, right?
It's a whole country, by the way.
True story.
Yeah,
true story.
Yeah.
So whether you're listening just from Gauteng, KZN, or Free State, or wherever, that's what they're looking to do. In terms of just people perhaps needing to find out more, because I mean, this was a short and to the point interview. How can they find out more? Obviously, the various departments are available to them, but it's maybe better just to connect with you as well, Johann.
You can look. I mean, as I said, the Family Policy Institute has got this wax. They know their stuff really, really well. My role in this is, because I deal with this almost daily, I get people. So I try and just create awareness about what they can do. I can't stress enough that parents need to get involved.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the way our school system is put is that parents have quite a big say in this, and shouldn't just sit back and complain. They need to get actively involved. But, you know, you can contact me. My email is out there, and we can take this forward.
Family Policy Institute. It's headed up by Errol Naidu, a godly man who knows and understands things. So you can also go check out www.familypolicyinstitute.com. and you'll be able to find more information on there as well. But Johann, thank you so much for being willing to talk about this. Really important. Really appreciate it. And again, parents, get educated, know and understand what's going on.